Hi there! In this video, let's check out how to plan the sprint capacity per user if that is the case that you want. So usually we track capacity on the sprint level. Like for the sprint, we have, 30 story points. We also estimate every story with the story points and maybe, every issue, ticket, bug, whatever you have. Then we assign them to the sprints and understand what can be done within our team this sprint. But sometimes you need a bit more granularity and you want to track the capacity not on the sprint level but on the user level. So this sprint, this user has this capacity, and the sprint capacity is an accumulation of the user's capacities that we have. So how to deal with such cases? So right now I have a prepared schema where I only have sprints as a database. As you see, it has nothing but dates and it is connected to the story. So in a single sprint, we can plan multiple stories. Instead of stories, there can be again issues, tickets, bugs. There can be many of them. And when I open a story, I see that story has some points that we assign to it. It also belongs to the single sprint, single, that's important. And I also have a single user who's responsible for working on this story. So in this case, I definitely recommend to use a one-to-many relation between story and user instead of just adding assignees field, because when adding assignees field, there is a chance that you can assign several responsible users for a single story. And in this case, we have no idea how the percentage has to be assigned. For example, like this is just a small pause on the topic. Let's say we have story one, and on story one we have five story points planned, and we assigned two people there, like Polina and Ilya. There comes a question: does it mean that we plan 5 points to Polina and then we plan 5 points to Ilya? No, probably not, because then the weight of the story will be 10 points. Does it mean that we separate them equally? So, like, 2.5 points go to Polina and 2.5 points go to Ilya. Well, that's also not a case, probably, because maybe Ilya just came and made some comments and we asked him, as a consultant, as a QA, etc., etc. So in this case, there are too many questions that we cannot cover. So if you are going to plan the capacity per user, please make sure that every store is assigned to a single user in a sprint who is mostly responsible for that and to which all the points will be added. So what do we do next? Next, we create a database. Let's call it sprint capacity. And this database will be used to store information about a single user's capacity within a sprint. So in this database, we will store all the details about the user's capacity. In fact, we can call it sprint user capacity, but it will be too much, maybe. So what do I mean? I mean that, let's say that will be Polina, sprint one. What do we have to know? We say that this is planning about a specific sprint, right? So it's about the sprint one. And it is about Polina, so willing the user as well. Okay, that's about Polina. And I can also add, like, for example, Ilya, sprint one capacity. Almost. Okay, this goes about sprint one, and this all goes about another user, Ilya. So if I open a sprint, I see that I'm planning right now capacity for 2 users here. Okay, now I only have a naming, and let's add a number field that is called, let's say, planet capacity. And we calculate it, in story points, in hours, whatever you use for your planning. And I said that for Polina it goes 10, and for Ilya it goes a little bit less, because Ilya is just back from vacation. Let's say he was still on vacation on Monday, or he took a day off on Monday. So this sprint, his capacity will be a bit less than normally. This is probably what we're going to reflect. Okay, so now when I open the sprint, I don't want probably to see the name. Name can be later generated as a formula. I want to see the user. Okay. And I want to see his planet capacity. Okay. So this is it. Let's now create a formula on the sprint level. Because probably sprint's capacity, as we said before, will be our accumulated capacity of the sprint assignees. And let's call it planet capacity. So we say that please go to the sprint capacity and summarize their planet capacity. Okay, now we have planet capacity for the sprint 18, and when we will drag and drop our stories, it will also reflect with formulas. Let's go to the next part. That's not all we want to have. This is good, but now, of course, I want to track, based on the stories that Paulina is assigned in a sprint 1, how many capacity does she has left when it is overrun, and etc. So for that, I'm going to connect sprint capacities and stories. But of course, I don't want manual to relink stories every time, so we will use auto-linking magic. What do? I go to the relation part and I want to connect it with stories. My sprint capacity may have many stories because within a single sprint, I can work on multiple stories. And story has only one sprint capacity because story can belong to one sprint only at the same time. Because as the rule, if it was not finished in this sprint, it goes to the next sprint automatically, like from scratch. And I turn on this switcher here, automatically links sprint capacities to stories. I say that when the sprint we're talking about are the same in the story and sprint capacity, so we check whether the story belongs to the sprint 1 and whether the capacity belongs to the sprint 1. And then we check the user, whether the user we assigned sprint capacity to, in our case, Paulina, are the same as assignee, aka user on the story level. In this case, we're gonna link them. When I added this, as you see, story 1 and story 4 are planned for the sprint 1 capacity for Paulina. So it means that my assigned capacity will be calculated based on the linked stories, story 1 and story 4. Let's check how it works. Let's say that we add a story 5. No matter where you add this story, I added here, but it can be a board, a table, whatever. I assign it to Paulina. I say that the points are 2, and this is for the sprint 1. As you see, it appeared here automatically. Okay, so Paulina can open her card for the current sprint 1 capacity, and check her stories, what she has to work on. We can even switch to the board and make it look, I don't know. I wanted to do it by state, but I forgot to add the state field to the story level. Okay, let's keep it like this. What else do I want to do now? Now I want to see how many capacity do I have left for the sprint. Haven't I overrun that? So for that, I'm adding a formula. So my real capacity is accumulation of the stories assigned to me in the sprint. So I call it allocated capacity. And I say, please go to the stories that link it automatically and summarize their, how was it called, field? Points. Okay. Okay, I see that my capacity is 10 and I was allocated 11. Okay, for you to decide, it is for you to decide whether it is okay, whether it is not. And what we can do, even, we can create a kind of an if formula that will check whether we run out of the limits or not, and then we'll, I don't know, add a mark. Maybe let's write this formula right now. Okay, so we say, maybe we can even make it simpler and create another formula that will check capacity left to allocate. So that it is planet capacity minus allocated capacity. Okay, it's -1 and Ilya has 3. And now let's add last formula that if capacity left to allocate is less than 0, then it is, let's say it will be too much. If it is, then it has to be okay. Of course, it can be like when it is 0, then it's fully allocated, maybe like capacity left. So it can be, this formula can be more complicated, okay? And we can even add some icons here. So let's add red here. I don't know why it looks like this. Okay, good. So we see that Polina is over allocated and Ilya has some capacity left. And we can see the same thing on the sprint level right here. So we can visualize our capacity left to allocate and our allocation status. Maybe we want to put it on the top, like this. And if it's an option for you, if it is too much, you can even customize notification rule to notify the Scrum Master, the manager, the user that too much was allocated to the single user. What is nice here as well, so of course you can, as you see, you can improve it with more formulas. You can have nice overview on the sprint level. You also have now reporting capacities, reporting capabilities, because as sprint capacity is a separate database, you can have a historical running. You can create a report where you can compare how the capacity of a single user was changed within a time, right? How number of stories changed within a time, and etc. What else can be added? Yes, I also promised to show you how to create name as a formula. So yeah, probably it doesn't make sense to put it down like for every participant of the sprint manually this part. So let's generate this name as a formula. We want to see the username plus some space and plus sprint name. Okay, and Polina Zanevich, sprint 1 capacity. I cannot change it because it became a formula, but when I create another one for sprint 2 for Polina, it will show me Polina Zanevich, sprint 2 capacity. So it's probably just for you to less worry about that. Here in a sprint, then it goes a question, where does it make sense to create those sprint capacity items when the whole structure is ready? I don't like, to be honest, probably this board, and I don't think that this is the perfect way to manage it from the table or from the sprint capacity level. I think that in real life, it probably will be something done on the sprint level. And usually, like, especially if you're working with teams, you already know the list of the users that will be working on the sprint. And you can create an automation rule that creates those sprint capacities predefined for every sprint. And the only thing you have to do is to make some changes if something changed from your side, like this employee is sick, this one is on vacation, etc. So how do I do that? I go to the automation step. I create a rule. It will be called generate sprint capacity for every sprint. I say that when new sprint is created, I want to add sprint capacities item. And I say that it goes for Polina. And Polina usually has 15 points. I want to create the same one for Ilya. And he would say, I don't know, he is awesome, so he'll have 20 points. And we have another one user, for example, Ksenia, and she's super awesome, and she has 25 points. Okay, I save this rule. So the only thing when you have to change this rule is when someone has left your company, for example, then no need to create it for him anymore, or if usual capacity for this user is changed, the repeatable one. So what happens, I create another sprint that is called sprint 3. I open it, And as you see, we have some capacities predefined. I can change it because Paulina was sick recently, so now her capacity is 10 for this specific sprint, but next time it will be generated again as 15. And the fact that it really works, let's say add a new sprint, new story new test, okay? And we can assign and everything here. Probably you have some fancy boards, planning ones, but we're doing that without those fancy views. So I said that this story takes 5 points and it will be for Paulina. Okay? And as you see, Paulina's capacity here was recalculated automatically. If you want to see more, I think we can even do something like this. So we'll see which kind of information. I just don't need the sprint capacity name still. So which stories were assigned to Paulina, and I can easily reassign them probably here to Ilya, can I? No, I can't, but I did my best to try it. And if I change it here to Ilya, let's say, then it will reappear here very soon, and this formula will be recalculated for Ilya. So this, again, this is a solution when your sprint calculation fully depends on the people who are assigned to the sprint, and our planned capacity here is 50 fine points. This is it.